Chiefs Kingdom, we are just over 24 hours away from the release of the Kansas City Chiefs 2026 schedule. And on today's episode of the Chiefs Report, presented by PrizePicks, I am going to give you guys the 5 games that I am really looking forward to for the Kansas City Chiefs during the 2026 season. I'm not going to lie. I'm excited for every single game of Chiefs football. I'm just excited to get football back in general. But these 5 in particular are really standing out to me. So we're going to break them down and why they're standing out on today's show. But if you're excited to see the Kansas City Chiefs 2026 schedule before we get into this thing, make sure you drop a like on today's video and also make sure you're subscribed. I will say, we're going to have coverage for you as soon as this schedule is out. But if you're fired up, drop a like on today's video and make sure you don't miss our schedule release announcement video when it is out tomorrow as we break down the entire Kansas City Chiefs 2026 schedule. But let's focus on 5 critical matchups right here, right now on today's show. Starting with number 5, we get to take on, at home, the Super Bowl runner-up New England Patriots and the reigning AFC champion New England Patriots. And this, to me, not too many reasons why, or not too hard to see why, it's a top 5 most anticipated game, in my opinion. This is a possible AFC championship preview. I absolutely feel that way. I think both of these teams are 100% capable of getting to that point, of reaching the AFC championship, of being the caliber of team needed to do that. Obviously, we saw New England just go out there and do it last season. And I think they made some positive changes this offseason. I think they've taken some steps in the right direction to address some of their needs to improve overall. And some of those moves are big time, and they may have another one up their sleeve. They may have another move up their sleeve. Obviously, there's been side stories along the way for New England this offseason, but they've made a couple major acquisitions. Draymond Jones, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Romeo Doubs all coming in, with Stephon Diggs and Garrett Bradbury coming out. And there is a league-wide expectation, something we've talked about before, that they will add A.J. Brown after the June 1st deadline when the Eagles can trade him. So if that happens, you're talking about a much more formidable receiving unit for the MVP runner-up in Drake May, one of the league's rising stars. And here's how I feel about this for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you want to get back to the Super Bowl, if you want to get back to being the best team in the AFC, bar none, you got to beat the team that is currently the best in the AFC. And we can have ticky-tack conversations about talent, but the Patriots won the AFC Championship game last season. So by that alone, they are at the top. They are the team you should be looking to knock off if you want to get back to the top in the AFC. But they're not the only team that the Kansas City Chiefs need to be knocking off if they're going to get to the top of the AFC. One of the other steps along that ladder, rungs along that ladder, is our old foes. The team that just won't go away over the last decade-ish of Patrick Mahomes' career, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. We know. Everybody knows. Even if you're not a Chiefs fan, even if you're not a Bills fan, if you're just a third-party viewer, very few of you guys, I'm sure, watching this, but everyone looks forward to these matchups. Everyone looks forward to Chiefs versus Bills because Mahomes versus Allen is fireworks every single effing time. That's why we all know this is going to be a primetime game. 90% chance that this is a primetime game. We were on the Sunday slate in the America's Game of the Week slot last season, but still kind of a primetime slot for the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. This game always gets its recognition, and it absolutely deserves it. Even if you put everything else aside about these two teams, you're dealing with the AFC's, in my opinion, best 2 quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the 1 and the 2 of quarterbacking in the AFC. And I know we don't like these guys, but you have to respect them. You have to respect Josh Allen and what he's able to do. But it's a new season. It's a bit of a new day for the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to talk about the changes that make them a very different team than we've seen in years past on today's show. But before we get to that, we've got to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that's America's #1 sports picks app, our friends over at PrizePicks. Guys, if you love daily fantasy sports or you just want to add more excitement to watching sports, you've got to try out PrizePicks. And it's a great time to get started on PrizePicks, too, with the NBA playoffs underway and the baseball season in full swing as well, pun intended as always. There's no better place to get in on all that action than PrizePicks. And it's never been easier to play than it is with PrizePicks. You just pick 2 to 6 players, and you're selecting more or less on their stat projections, whether you're picking from points, assists, rebounds, hits, home runs, or strikeouts. They've got plenty of options from all your favorite sports. Plus, PrizePicks has awesome social features that allow you to easily tailor fade your friends or your favorite creators, including me. I'm Jackson Durham with no spaces on there, and you guys can drop a follow and see all of my latest lineups, including this one that I've got going with PrizePicks' season-long picks. I'm going with the less on Fernando Mendoza, I'm going with the less on Jeremiah Love, and I'm going with the more on Jordan Tyson. So you guys can tail me on this lineup, you can fade me on this lineup, whatever you do. As always, just do it with our friends at PrizePicks. And if you're new to PrizePicks, make sure you use our promo code. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. The clickable link to download the app is in the comments and the description below. As always, big shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to our discussion of the Kansas City Chiefs' top 5 most anticipated games. And here's what's new for the Buffalo Bills this season. I think the biggest thing, the most notable thing, is Sean McDermott, their head coach, who really, in all honesty, got this franchise back on track after years and years and years of mediocrity, is out. After this offseason, or after this season, they fired him, and they have replaced him with their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, an effort to appeal more to what Josh Allen wants in this offense. And in assisting that, they also went out and got him a new receiver. They traded with the Bears, acquiring DJ Moore, and they brought in some edge help as well with Bradley Chubb. But overall, it'll be very interesting to see how this game plays out under a new head coach in Joe Brady. We've seen the McDermott and Andy Reid, Bills and Chiefs respectively, have their battles over the last couple of seasons. 5 matchups in the last 3 years in which we are 2-3, but we've gotten the ones that really matter. The AFC Championship game in 2024, big win. The divisional in 2023, on the road to winning a Super Bowl, another huge win for this Kansas City Chiefs team. But the regular season matchups have belonged to Buffalo. I'd like to see that shift here. Now that McDermott is out, I think this is a big-time opportunity in a year that could be a little bit off the rails for Buffalo. If things don't settle in with Joe Brady, we need to take them down in the regular season. And, of course, if we see again in the playoffs, we know what will happen then, just like it did in 2024 and in 2023. But let's move on to another rivalry matchup that's coming up this season. We go on the road again here to Ohio to visit our good friends in Cincinnati, the Bengals. Again, like the Bills, some playoff battles with this team over the last couple of seasons, and they've taken steps in the right direction. I was actually more surprised to see Zach Taylor come back for them than I was that Sean McDermott went out in Buffalo. If you'd asked me at the start of the offseason who's going to change, I would have told you the Bengals over the Bills. But Zach Taylor returns for his 7th season as the Bengals head coach, and they've made some interesting additions to this defense this offseason. Boye Mafe, Brian Cook from us, bringing our safety in. And they also, in a blockbuster trade with the New York Giants, went out and got Dexter Lawrence. This defense, which had been such a weak point for Cincinnati over the last couple of seasons, a huge part of what has held them back from achieving a Super Bowl. They've been to a Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's tenure, but they haven't yet won one. It's been the defense. The defense just hasn't been good enough, and they've taken a big step forward here. So there's a chance that this is the best version of the Bengals we've seen in Joe Burrow's time. That's absolutely possible, and I'm excited about that. The idea of that fires me up because, guys, I love this rivalry when Cincy is healthy. That's the big caveat, right? I love watching these games as long as we're actually getting to watch duels between Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and not duels between Patrick Mahomes and Jake Browning. That's not what I'm trying to watch at the end of the day. I want to see this dude out there for Cincinnati. I want to see, just like we talked about with the game against Buffalo and like we're about to talk about with our next matchup that I'm really looking forward to, elite quarterback play from both sides, and that is what you get nearly every time we see these two line it up. And it's absolutely what we're going to get in my second most anticipated matchup of the 2026 season for Kansas City on the road against the Los Angeles Rams. Guys, this is a matchup that has some layers, no? This one has a lot going for it. Number one, this team raided our secondary this offseason. They took away Trent McDuffie in a big-time trade. We got a lot of draft capital for it. We just talked about recently in our secondary overall video about how I think in the long run, this plays well for Kansas City, moving off of Trent McDuffie. But what surprised me more is that they stole Jalen Watson as well in free agency, signing him away, something I told you guys wasn't likely to happen. I thought that Kansas City would make a big-time push to keep him, and I think there's a likelihood that they did. I think Kansas City wanted to bring him back. I think Los Angeles beat him to the punch, and it left Kansas City in need of a rebuild in the secondary. Just like we talked about, we overhauled this thing, and going toe-to-toe with the Los Angeles Rams is a great test of this unit. You've got the reigning MVP at quarterback. You've got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams in that receiver room. It's one of the best receiver cores in the NFL. Puka is an unbelievably tough matchup for Mansour. It's a great test of his mettle in his rookie season. And oh, hey, one last thing. The last time we played second to last time we played the Rams, instant classic in 2018. An unbelievable game. Didn't end up going our way. But 54-51, widely considered one of the greatest regular season games in NFL history. How could you not be looking forward to seeing these two run it back? Because the last time we played LA, they did not have their starting quarterback in. We saw Bryce Perkins ball. And hey, I ain't looking forward to any Bryce Perkins football against the Kansas City Chiefs. That would be like us running Chris Oladokun out there last season. It's the same level. And again, we want to see elite quarterback play. That's what gets me fired up about these matchups. And seeing Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford, two of the quarterbacks in the NFL right now, who are, and honestly, I would say they're at the zenith. They haven't seen each other since 2019. It has been a long time since they have lined it up. The last time they did, Stafford was a Detroit Lion. And he still had 2 years left, or still a full year left in Detroit before he would go on to become a Los Angeles Ram. Because again, like I mentioned, the last time we played the Rams, they had Bryce Perkins in at quarterback. That was that 22 season where Stafford got injured. But you look at the numbers between these two guys, they speak for themselves. The names speak for themselves. This is a must-watch matchup between two unbelievably talented quarterbacks. But my number one most anticipated game of the 2026 season for the Kansas City Chiefs is by far our Week 1 matchup against the Denver Broncos. Guys, I cannot wait for this one. Because it, like I told you very recently, is going to set the tone for the AFC West all season long. Last season, I told you guys, the Broncos got out of line. They upstarted and won the division. They even won a playoff game for the first time in like a decade. Good season for Denver. We've got to remind them that it was a fluke. That this will not happen again. That they will go back to being at best second in the AFC West. That's the biggest narrative in this one, in my opinion. But there's three other critical ones. QB health. absolutely you've got to monitor that. We talked about that recently, but both quarterbacks are coming in with injury situations that add a level of intrigue to this game. Patrick Mahomes obviously dealing with the ACL from last season. I think he's going to be on track to start in week 1, but Bo Nix is also dealing with the ankle injury he suffered in the AFC Championship game. Quick surgery after that. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses this offseason for both of those guys, but also Mansour Delane versus Jalen Waddle. How did both of these teams spend their first-round picks in 2026? We went out and got Mansour Delane, one of our 2 first-round picks. They went out and traded for Jalen Waddle. We upgraded our secondary. They upgraded their receiver core. Who gets more results out of that in year 1? We're about to see it on display. And speaking of the rookies, more rookie debuts to monitor. We get to see all of the new Kansas City Chiefs rookies out there, at least all the ones that will play, and I think that's going to be pretty much everybody but Garrett Nussmeier. And then lastly, like we mentioned to start this thing, this is about setting the tone for the AFC West in 2026 and reminding the Broncos who runs this division and who's run it for the last few years. It's us. And it'll be us again in 2026. But which game are you most excited to see the Kansas City Chiefs win in 2026? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from the Chiefs Kingdom on this one as we round out today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We always appreciate your time. And as always, let's go Chiefs.